This is not the Church of Latter-day Saints, of Joseph Smith. This is the Church of Jesus Christ.
Travis, my good soul. So, today, I'm on the lookout to see if there's going to be a reverse pattern by God. Not Trinitarian God, not non-Trinitarian God, the learning of the Jews God. So, watching out, checking the church history, or the church news, for Elder Holland, or anybody else that might surprise me. So, you have your Deadpool out, right? Clint Eastwood, Deadpool? Not the Marvel superhero. So, I want to get two videos for you. But I don't want to spend all day doing videos. I want to get back to Erica. See, there's this feud between Disney and the public, in which Disney doesn't want to make DVDs of their products, their TV shows and movies. And there are some that they still continue to do, like the movies for Marvel and the movies for Star Wars. But the TV shows, they're hesitant to bring out DVDs, at least in America. And so they had Turner and Hooch on TV. And I had been able to watch, because I had a Disney Plus subscription, and thus recorded for my records the pilot episode. And then I was cyber attacked and was unable to watch the show anymore. And so, with the threat to my life that the Church of Jesus Christ caused, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to watch the show again, get to the rest of the season, and because I knew of this feud. And especially Amazon, there's a feud between Disney and Amazon, in which Disney doesn't want Amazon selling their products. How else are we going to get it, Disney? And so, yeah, I was concerned, but found a seller in a foreign country. And so, yeah, there was a high risk of, am I actually going to get it, or did I just waste my money on it? And I did get it, and was able to convert it to a digital format, so I don't have to have shelves of DVDs in my apartment. And so, yeah, I want to get back to Erica. If it wasn't for Turner and Hooch. So, Joseph Smith history. Why can't women be like that? Erica, she makes me sigh. I look at her, I sigh. I hear her, I sigh. I just think, I am so lonely. Why can't women be like her? Owing to the many reports which have been put in circulation, Joseph Smith is writing this in 1838. He tells us in verse 2, and so it is necessary, in order to study church history, to study the Joseph Smith history, you have to know real church history. what happened in 1838? Well, Joseph Smith had been falsely accused of the bank fraud, as the Danites, the secret combination that was destroying his church and his reputation, had taken out loans from the bank and didn't pay them back, collapsing the bank. And so Joseph Smith got busted for it, but he had just gotten out, and so he's now working on the Book of Abraham papyrus some more that he got in 1835, and he's also doing this history, this version of history, an official version. Previous versions were to specific individuals. You need to understand that context. This is for the church and for the general public. So this takes precedence over what you think about the others. And so it is important to know this historical background, because after he does this and publishes this in the Times and Seasons, which means he edited it and approved of its publication, his church was cooed by the Danites. They chased out the leadership. They caused the Mormon War with election fraud and framed Joseph again for it, as Joseph Smith got sent to Liberty Jail. And so these Danites were also forging documents later on, after he died, to claim that Joseph Smith gave revelations in 1838, which he didn't. This is important. You can't just deny because you want a certain church to be true. You are dissing on Joseph when you do that. And so he says, owing to the many reports which have been put in circulation. Who puts Joseph's church in circulation? The missionaries. They are going around handing out Book of Mormons, talking about the church. That's their job. That's their responsibility. Okay? So he's talking about the missionaries. And in 1838, Thomas B. Marsh is still the president. But in this coup, the Danites chase him out. So if a certain organization claims that it was over milk scrapings of his wife, they're lying to you, because they're the Danites. And thus, Brigham Young then became the president of the Missionary 12, not the administrative 12 called the High Council. But there were members of the High Council who were chased out by the Danites. This was a full-on coup. The Danites sought to overthrow and destroy Joseph's church. So thus, Joseph knows about this and calls the missionaries evil-disposed and designing persons in relation to the rise and progress of... Now we have to go to the Joseph Smith papers for this, because this is the wrong name. Which branch off uses this name? The Church of Latter-day Saints. So there's a certain section 115 claiming to be from 1838. Oops, forged document. I certainly hope President Russell Marion Nelson never quotes from section 115 to justify the name of his church. It's amazing what can be found in the Joseph Smith papers. And so it's important to know Joseph's church was not named with Jesus Christ. And we're going to find out why. All of which have been designed by the authors thereof to militate against its character as a church and its progress in the world. Okay? So verse 16, Joseph Smith is telling us in his vision, so it's not literal history, it's a vision, but he's using him as the main character of his vision. This is the learning of the Jews. Interesting. Why would Joseph do that? Not be Christian? Because he says he's looking for a Christian church to join. The Presbyterians, that was the pastor that officiated at Alvin's funeral. And he tells Lucy Mack, your dead son is burning in hell. He will never be saved. So Lucy joins the church? Are we sure? If only her biography would settle this. Oops, she says to refer to her son's account. What was their religion? He then talks about Methodists. Well, that was she's older. I don't know if she was shorter. Emma's family church, the Methodists. In Harmony. And then the Baptist. Well, that was Sidney Rigdon's church. That's curious. Wonder what Sidney Rigdon has to do with any of this, if at all. If. Maybe. And so he doesn't reveal anything about his family's church. The Cowdreys, for example, were Congregationalists. And that was in Vermont. And there happened to have been a Nathaniel Wood who had been excommunicated by the Congregationalists, but still formed his own church called the New Israelites. They were Jewish Kabbalah. And so I wonder if Joseph Smith Sr. was a part of them. I don't know. Got to do real church history research to find out. Yeah. But we'll get to that. I think. I hope. It's my intention to get to that. He's the rewriter of the 116 pages, in case I don't. Spoiler alert. And so he's reading the Bible, and learning that all of these different groups of Christians have different interpretations. And when you have a different interpretation, you create a different religion, as he's making it clear. All these different Christian groups are not one. They may claim to have Trinitarian Jesus, but they are not the same. And thus, because they have a different interpretation of the Bible, it's a different interpretation of their Trinitarian Jesus. So Christians lie to you when they say they're all the same, but they want you to join their church and not the others. And so he's reading James in his vision and goes to pray. And he sees a pillar of light exactly over his head above the brightness of the sun. Is that the morning sun, evening sun, or the brightness of the noonday sun, which would be the brightest of the sun? The most high sun, shall we say. Yeah. And so here's where, do we? Yeah, we do. You need to know Egyptian. And so you study Egyptian, and you come to learn that the Egyptian sun god at noonday is Amun. And Amun has some fun stuff about him. He has a hidden name. Section 107. It was the name of the religion, especially during the 18th dynasty pharaohs of Egypt. They were called the Tuutmose. They began as a restoration church, having kicked out the Hyksos that were previous dynasty rulers. And so Yahmose was the military leader that started it off. And Yah in Egyptian is a moon deity under the oversight of Thoth, who was the main moon deity of the Egyptians. He was responsible in many instances, going back to the origin of the Egyptians, with Nut and Geb and their father Shu being commanded by grandfather Atum, the evening sun, the Ancient of Days, to separate them, to not have sex, because brother and sister loved each other. And it was too late. She got pregnant, but because Shu separated the waters from the waters, and the dry land Nut, or Geb, appeared. Yeah, this is the creation story. Thought then was necessary to come in and add 5 extra days to the religious calendar of 360 to create a civil calendar of 365 days, so that on those 5 days, her 5 children, what would they be called? 5 kids? Uno, duo, tres, quattro, quinque, quintuplets, would be born. And then you have the main story of the Egyptians from this, as Osiris is Father Amun, and Horus, his son, is son Amun. And so these 18th dynasty pharaohs took upon them a Horus name, as well as they were known as Son Amun. And so, Tawut Moshe, this is going to be a long video, isn't it? It's a good thing I entertained you with Erica. And so, we're not there yet. Spoiler alert. Tawut Moshe II died prematurely before his son, David Moses III, was old enough to take the throne in his place. That's how the dynasties were done, was father to son, firstborn birthright son. And so the Amun priesthood was concerned because their power comes from having their pharaoh on the throne. And if another dynasty takes over, they're most likely to get replaced and lose their jobs. And so they were very concerned. And so the queen, Hatshepsut, came to the Amun priesthood and told them of the premortal council in heaven, in which they saw, as Peter is the Egyptian word for seer, and is the two eyes of Horus, the son who would restore the kingdom of his father, who was murdered by his brother Set. And thus the kingdom was designed upon this, that the death of a king was considered to reenact that first Egyptian story. And then the son is the one who restores the throne. And so when dynasties start anew, it's under that same theme as well. And so the Hyksos dynasty, who usurped the old dynasty pharaohs, took upon themselves the god Set, because they usurped the dynasty. And then the Ramsey Seti dynasty, after the 18th dynasty, they Set for Seti took over, because they usurped the dynasty. And so Hatshepsut tells them that this premortal council in heaven knew, prophesied, saw that this would happen, and that they had a contingency for this, that Hatshepsut, as female, as the queen, would temporarily act as pharaoh until Tawut Moshe, her son, the third, was old enough to take the throne. And so a female pharaoh was the pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Yes, I'm referring to facsimile number 3 in the book of Abraham. And she also told the Amun priesthood, to help solidify this further, that Father Amun had come from outer space to her child, bride, queen mother, and had sex with her, and gave birth to Hatshepsut. And therefore, because she is the literal exalted seed and mortal egg of descent, that therefore she also had claim to the throne of Egypt. Okay? non-Trinitarian Christian. That wasn't how it worked. It was her actual father, but she was using that to appease the Amun priesthood. So there isn't really that situation that occurred. So there is no such thing as non-Trinitarian Christian. Okay? And so that helps you understand who Amun is in context. And so, who appears to Joseph Smith? But father and son, Amun. Two personages in the pillar of light above the brightness of the sun at noonday. And so, thus, Father Amun says of the other, "This is my son of Mary. Hear him." Mary in Egyptian is beloved. All right, and so he is told in verse 19 that he must join none of the Christian religions. They're all wrong. Do you understand what all means? Not a single Christian branch off. None of them. And so Joseph then creates his own branch off of Christianity and calls it non-Trinitarian. Are we sure? Why not? Well, because he continues on. All their creeds, and it's son Amun who's telling Joseph in this vision that all their creeds, thus the first creed that started them all, with the creation of Christianity. That first creed was created in 325 CE by Roman Emperor Constantine. There were all these different groups of congregations that were not Christian because Constantine created Christianity. Any interpretation that they were Christian has to be understood in the learning of the Jews, because the Jews were there in the Middle East and had been destroyed by the Romans, but not exterminated. And so, following the pattern of the Therapeutae, which the Dead Sea Scrolls Qumran community was likewise, with a healer and a teacher. Therapeutae, therapy, healer. They had a teacher. And each of these congregations had 12 disciples going around to the other congregations with this teacher. And so the bishops became known as the head of these congregations after the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. And they each wrote for their congregation a tale of the God for the latter days. This is the learning of the Jews. And we're going to get to that. But the Jews have in their law a prophecy of a latter-day Christ. And so they would each write a story about a name of a character who represented symbolically their Christ. And I guess we'll reveal it for you. It's Isaiah who names him Amen, El, God, Amen, the Egyptian sun god at noonday. But, for example, the author of Genesis, the Christ is named Joseph. In the Exodus, the Christ is named Moses. And thus the law says the Christ is a man like Moses. And so Isaiah is Emmanuel. And Matthew, Jesus. Luke, Jesus. The author of Joshua, Jesus. Because that's the Hebrew of the Greek Jesus. None of these are real people. None of these are real history. They are writing about the latter-day prophecies. And they give us star dates, told in story form, if not like John in Revelation, actual star dates, so that we know the day of the latter days. But we're getting to it. And so Constantine wanted to exterminate the Jews. And so he forced the congregations of bishops to meet at Nicaea to become one. And they couldn't decide on the nature and character of their Christ. But they did come to an agreement that his name would be Jesus. And so it was very hot, and Constantine was getting cranky, impatient, and came out and created a brand new word to describe the nature and character of the new Christ, of the new formed Christianity. Homuzion. It means, by definition, because he made it up, not real. And so Joseph Smith is being told by Emmanuel, the Egyptian sun god at noonday, that the formation of Christianity by Roman Emperor Constantine, with the creation of Jesus as not real, Trinitarian, is an abomination in his sight. No duh. Abomination. That sounds familiar. There's the abomination of desolation for the latter days. There's the great and abominable church of the latter days. But we see also that Christianity is the great and abominable church. Sorry, Bruce, it's not just the Catholics. Bruce R. McConkie, Mormon Doctrine, originally blamed Catholicism. Then it was edited and removed. And so, every single Christian pastor are corrupt. They draw near to Emmanuel with their lips, but they're talking about Trinitarian Jesus. They replaced the Jews. Every single Christian is anti-Semitic. Every single Christian are an abomination because of this. Now, do you understand why I don't expect Christians to last long on my channel? And so go back again to the beginning of this Joseph Smith history. What did Brigham Young and his Danites do to Joseph Smith? Yeah. They replaced him and his religion and the name of his church with the abomination. Now, do you understand why there's an inverted pentagram of Lucifer on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, and why they're so obsessed with porn, wanting to cover it up and hide it? And then make a blacklist of everybody who watches it. But the Texas judge saved the day. The doctrines of Lucifer are taught within the temple. They're not Joseph's. Again, he's getting framed. Magic underwear, not Joseph's. Framed. Alright. So then let's go to... Gotta go back further. Alright, verse 30. So now Joseph Smith is in the bicentennial year of this year. This is the bicentennial year of the second vision. And so the first vision was in the spring of 1820, which the bicentennial year was 2020. Hold that thumb note, or paste it note, whatever you call them. This is the bicentennial year of the second vision. Okay? It's frustrating having nose hairs. And then it's even more frustrating to have Kleenex that turns to powder. And so when I talk, it vibrates and causes itching and scratching. And so thus, while thus in the act of prayer. Again, this is a vision. It is not literal history. This is the learning of the Jews. Because the learning of the Jews are pre-Assyrian deportation and pre-Babylonian captivity. Isaiah, when he talks about Emmanuel, is speaking before the Assyrian captivity. And so it's the religion and deity of those who ruled the land of Israel. Egypt. And so they're talking about the 18th dynasty that had fallen to the 19th dynasty and needs to be restored. And so these pre-Jews, thus Israelites, are Egyptian. Paleo-Hebrew is the first created alphabet of Egyptian. The modern alphabet that was created during the Greek into the Ptolemaic period when they decided to create an Egyptian alphabet. No. Paleo-Hebrew, also called Phoenician, is the first. And so yes, it's exactly similar to Greek. And so Paleo-Greek was the first attempt to include a vowel introduction into the picture language alphabet, ideograms. And so, yes, in order to learn about scriptures, you're also going to need to know Paleo-Hebrew. But it has not been deciphered. Current scholarship only knows about Babylonian Semitic Hebrew when the Jews got assimilated into Babylon and thus changed the language. And so you have to find someone who might have deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, or you'll have to do it yourself. Academia.edu. Alright? Because there's a lot of information knowing Paleo-Hebrew, not just biblical Hebrew, to understand scriptures with. Because biblical Hebrew has some errors. Right, Joseph Smith in the King Follett Discourse? And so he's praying again in his vision, and his room has a light appear. And yeah, lighter than at noonday. And a personage appears. Who's the personage who's lighter than the sun at noonday? Emmanuel. Amen, the Egyptian sun god at noonday, is appearing to Joseph Smith again. Son Amen. Son Amen appeared in the first vision and said, I am the true God, not these Christian abominations. Now, in the second vision, Emmanuel has come back. A second time, a second coming of Emmanuel. And so there's the porn. He's wearing a sheer robe, transparent robe, so that he can see that he's male. And he's described as Jupiter, countenance truly like lightning. Jupiter plays a big part in this, because as people migrated out of Egypt, they changed the traditions, the culture, the government, the religion, the rituals, the language, to adjust to the changes. And so you have different names for the Egyptian deities. Ishtar of the Mesopotamians is Isis, and so her husband Marduk would therefore be Osiris. And you get to the Greeks, or the Canaanites, Yah, he's Emmanuel, and that is the same as Zeus in the Greeks, pictorially the same. And Zeus, therefore, is Emmanuel. And so the Romans is Jupiter. He's Emmanuel. Thus, Joseph knows and understands this. Jupiter is Emmanuel. And he calls Joseph by name and says that he was a messenger sent from the presence of God. Now you need to know your biblical Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew will also help. This is Malachi. So Emmanuel comes to Joseph Smith, says he's Malachi. And that his name, now we have to refer to the Joseph Smith papers again, was Nephi. This was published in the Times and Seasons in 1838. That caused the Danites to say, enough. We're pissed. How dare you talk bad about our non-Trinitarian Jesus? It's Nephi. Now the reason why the Danites replaced Nephi with Moroni was so that they could do other editing, like put in Jesus for the name of the church. But in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 27, we now realize that this is an error that needs to be corrected, as Joseph Smith corrected it with the 1838 version. But it never did, because this was put in the Book of Commandments and then still slipped by into the 1835 edition. And so Brigham Young didn't do another version until 1844. But in verse 5, behold, this is wisdom in me, wherefore marvel not. For the hour cometh that I will drink of the fruit of the vine with you on the earth, and with Moroni, whom I have sent unto you to reveal the Book of Mormon, containing the fullness of my everlasting gospel, to whom I have committed the keys of the record of the stick of Ephraim. Yep. Nephi. Not Moroni. This needs to be changed. Because Joseph, in his official vision history that got published, made the change. And so Nephi sent Joseph Smith the Book of Mormon. Nephi holds the keys of the stick of Ephraim, which comes from Ezekiel 37, which talks about the Valley of Kings, which is referred to as the house of Israel. Valley of the Kings is in Egypt. It's where the 18th dynasty are buried. And Ezekiel is saying they're the house of Israel. Okay? So the stick of Judah and the stick of Joseph are to be combined together as one book. And then the Book of Mormon just happens to tell us that it's necessary to do, because it's not the Book of Mormon, because the Bible has some missing parts. It has some incorrect translations, not just incorrect interpretations, using Trinitarian or non-Trinitarian Christianity interpretation. And so, you would need to know Egyptian, and you would need to know Paleo-Hebrew in order to make those changes to fulfill prophecy. But it's apparently a key. And who holds all keys? Joseph Smith, obviously. But you need a section 28 to learn that. Verse 2. But behold, verily, verily, I say unto thee, no one. Do you understand what no one means? Shall be appointed to receive commandments and revelations in this church, excepting my servant Joseph Smith, Jr. So Brigham Young didn't have the keys. He can't receive revelations for the church, can't receive commandments for the church. What made him think that if Joseph is dead, he automatically runs the church? He's not a prophet, he's not a seer, he's not a revelator, he's not a translator. Only Joseph was. And so section 107, verse 22, Brigham Young was told when he was assigned to the 12 under Thomas B. Marsh that when Joseph would eventually die, this is how he was to be succeeded. Of the Melchizedek priesthood, verse 22 in section 107, 3 presiding high priests, not 1. Not 1 and 2 counselors. 3, like the quorum presidency of the 70. 7. Here it's 3 presiding high priests, chosen. Is that a sustaining vote? It's an actual vote. Chosen by the body of the whole Melchizedek priesthood. This is like Adam on Diamond, but not. And so, at the death of Joseph Smith, the whole Melchizedek priesthood, with the varying quorums that Joseph had, are supposed to gather in conclave, seal the doors, the Pope has been assassinated, Dan Brown is on the case, with, what's his name? Tom Hanks' character name. But, yeah, they vote. They don't sustain. You gotta vote for somebody. 3 presiding high priests. And so it can be any of the Melchizedek priesthood holders. Could be an elder. Could be an apostle. Could be a high counselor. Could be a high priest. But 3 of them voted. And thus, after voted, they are appointed and ordained to that office. And then presented to the whole church, where the whole church upholds with confidence, faith, and prayer. They are the quorum of the first presidency. And if they need counselors, they can have counselors. And so this is why only the traveling 12 and the missionary 70 are mentioned here, because they just got their licenses, and it's in the Joseph Smith papers, as he is now just forming these groups. And so he's telling them their duty and responsibility in the context of him. And so the 12 are not to replace Joseph Smith with the president. That's not what it says here. And so this was not done when Joseph died. There was a conference held in August. Brigham Young spoke, Sidney Rigdon spoke, Lucy Mack spoke. After the conference, everybody went their own way. Brigham Young claimed to be the president. Sidney Rigdon went and formed his own church. And Lucy Mack, along with Emma, refused to go with Brigham. They knew. Unfortunately, Hiram, in order to fulfill Joseph's prophecies, his wife had to be kidnapped by Heber C. Kimball with his son, Joseph Fielding Smith. And so, yeah, I'm going to cry if I go over what Heber did to Fielding and who he became, being turned to the dark side. So, the church is going to thus follow the pattern of the ancient Egyptians. The usurper will be usurped in the latter days by the son Emmanuel, son Amen. So let's get back to where we were in the history. All right, and so now Emmanuel, in this vision, is now talking about the Book of Mormon. Egyptian gold plates. Hey, that sounds a lot like the Knights Templar of the Holy Grail, which is the bloodline of Christ from King David, talking about Solomon, who would be the latter-day Christ in America to restore New Jerusalem. At X marks the spot of solar eclipses, prophesied in the Bible. You would be correct. Joseph Smith Sr. was a York Rites Freemason that had the Knights Templar. William Morgan had come to Western New York, got a house in Batavia for his family, as the Batavian Press, under David Miller, fronted him the money to work on a book. He had learned of a secret plot to overthrow the United States of America in the latter days. That this was going to take 200 years to accomplish. And he was going to expose it in a book. And so he can't do it in Batavia. And so he found a fellow Yorkite Freemason, Master Mason, in Canandaigua, New York, Joseph Smith Sr. And they were working on this book at his lodge until 9/11/1826. 9/11. On 9/11/1813, the Brits had landed and were prepared to march on D.C., in which they burned the White House down. Because of 9/11/1826, this group found out about him and were threatening his life. They falsely accused him and had him locked up in jail, threatening him not to proceed with the book. And so David Miller, in conjunction with Joseph Smith Sr., got him out of the country, and he disappeared. A reporter reported on the disappearance, talked about the conspiracy to cover up the warning to America that in the book that he was writing. And so because they didn't have the book, they didn't know the full extent of the warning. They just knew that it had to do with Freemasons. And so all Freemasons were blamed, when it was just the Scottish Rites Freemasons of the 33 degrees, rather than York Rites with the Knights Templar. They had been infiltrated by the Illuminati from Johann Adam Weishaupt on May 1st, 1776, and used the inverted pentagram of Lucifer. So the Nauvoo Temple by Brigham Young has the inverted pentagram at the sun position at noonday. And it was dedicated on the 1st of May, the anniversary of the Illuminati. John C. Bennett, whom Joseph Smith excommunicated for polygamy, went to the Danites, was rejected. He was going to expose them. Get the hell out of here. You're going to ruin our plans. We're going to murder Joseph. Went and formed his own Illuminati Halcyon order. And so, Joseph Smith Sr. was responsible for the Book of Mormon, as it became known as. This is where Sidney Rigdon comes in, because doing scientific research on the Book of Mormon, right, you learned that Sidney Rigdon is the major author. Now you know why. The manuscript pages had to disappear too, because people wanted to find it and destroy it and murder who has it. There's a threat to Joseph Smith Sr.'s life, so he can't have possession of them. He can't be associated with it. The news reporters' publications of the disappearance conspiracy caused the people to panic, and they burned, just like the White House, Freemason temples. Almost all of them were burned. A day of burning, just like the day of burning of the White House. Seeing the pattern here? And so Sidney Rigdon was now out in Ohio. He was no longer next door to Harmony, Pennsylvania, north of Pittsburgh, where he was also living in Pittsburgh at some point in time too. That's how he got a hold of the Solomon Spaulding manuscript. The guy died. The press can't do anything with it, so they give it away or they throw it away. Sidney Rigdon had a library where he collected books, thus hung out at the print press. And so he was able to obtain that manuscript. It wasn't for the purpose of publishing it himself, but they needed a cover story to compose the Book of Mormon now. Because people want to know who had the manuscript, who knows of their plot, so that they can murder them. And so the guy died. It never got published. So nobody knows about it. Oops, Mormonism unveiled. Somebody did. They didn't realize that. They were using that as a template for the Book of Mormon with the warning message of the latter days of this great and abominable church secret combination. Kingmen. And so when Junior was babysitting the money man who was going to pay for the Book of Mormon, his child died and was banished from Harmony and the Methodists of Emma's church because he was arrested as a glass looker on March 20th, 1826. And so, because Susquehanna River used to be named Harmony before the Smiths got there, they then used that in the writing so that when Martin Harris would again be referred to a year later to pay for the Book of Mormon, he would never catch on. He would just hear Harmony and go, yeah, it was Harmony. So yeah, he stole 116 pages that were copied by Joseph Smith, because he can't have the original documents. He has to have copies. Sidney Rigdon is working on the rest of the book with Oliver Cowdery helping him out to be his scribe. And so Oliver Cowdery joins Joseph to babysit him and to finish the whole Book of Mormon in 1.5 months, because section 10 has the wrong year, Bruce R. McConkie. Oopsies. Yeah, so who rewrote the 116 pages? Yeah, the Master Mason, Joseph Smith Sr. And thus you can see Knights Templar as well as New Israelite Jewish Kabbalah. This is the Book of Mormon, the Egyptian gold plates. And it is the exact same pattern as the Book of Mormon story of the second vision of Lehi. In 1 Nephi, chapter 1, starting in verse 8, he starts off with a sign in the heavens. Saw the heavens open, and he sees Saturn and Ophiuchus and Emmanuel with 12 others. This comes from Revelation. The apostle of the Lamb, named John, Nephi sees in his second vision. Chapter 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, Virgo, a virgin, shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call him Emmanuel. The moon under her feet, and upon her head crown of 12 stars. Virgo, Leo. Leo only has 9 stars to designate it, which means 3 planets of the 5 visible planets will be in Leo. And so she's pregnant. And in verse 5, there's Saturn with his birth. Jupiter retrogrades for a pregnancy period of time. Jupiter is the child. Jupiter is Emmanuel. Remember? Saturn is the father of Jupiter. So the other 3 stars in Leo are Mercury, Mars, and Venus. Because everything is used, the sun, the moon, all 5 visible planets, in a specific constellations, Ophiuchus, Virgo, and Leo, this is a once-only event. The more detail into a conjunction, the more precise of a date. This date only happens once. It never happens before, it never happens after. It only happens once. Every single astronomer of the field of astronomy can know this date. In fact, China knew this date as they published T-shirts for this date and referred to Revelation chapter 12 with that T-shirt. And so, yeah, I bought it because I had already known about it. September 2017. This is a fact. And so, why then would I move verse 5 to this sign? Because the Book of Mormon did. And the Joseph Smith translation, Revelation 12, 1-17, parentheses, appendix. Note the changed sequence of verses in the JST, period, end parentheses. It's in your footnotes. Did you look it up? And so who knows about learning of the Jews' astronomy? Jewish Kabbalah? Joseph Smith Sr. Who helped with the Joseph Smith translation? Sidney Rigdon. Because when he was a Campbellite of the Baptists, he wanted to revise the whole Bible. Alexander Campbell said, no, my church, I only want to do the New Testament. So Sidney Rigdon left, went to Ohio, but could never get around to working on the revision of the Bible until he joins the church with the book that he himself is the major author of. See how he got paid? As well as some of the Campbellite Baptist doctrines, rituals, at the end of the book. He wanted a day to preach and have the sacrament. And then baptism at 8 years old, yeah, that's Baptist. And so right there at the end of the Book of Mormon, in that year span where they have to lay low for a year because of Junior, Martin Harris was a member of the Anti-Mason Committee in Palmyra. So they had to lay low to make sure that the coast was clear still. And so Sidney Rigdon had time on his hands. He'd finished the book to that point. And so you then see in the Book of Mormon, I'm not dead yet. I still have room on the plates. So I'm going to tell you about the letters of my father Mormon. And now we're going to put in the abridgment of the record of Ether about the entire utter destruction of the Jaredites. And then I'm going to finish up with some more stuff, correcting the Bible to show that it's love, not charity. And if you read Alma, chapter 32, starting in verse 28, you won't remove manifest. Moroni, chapter 10, verses 3 through 5, for a spiritual witness corruption. And so, yeah, the baptismal prayers and the sacrament prayers are listed as well as Mormon going off on the abomination of baptizing babies. It's all Sidney Rigdon. Alrighty. And Joseph Smith, Revelation, translation Revelation 12:1, Jewish Kabbalah. Signs in the heavens in the likeness of things on the earth. And so now, Joseph is being shown in vision the Urim and Thummim attached to the breasts. Right, women? There are symbolisms. Your body is a symbolism. You shouldn't be covering it up and hiding. How can a man be a seer if you're covering up and hiding? It's Lucifer's doctrine to cover up and hide. At least be wearing something transparent like Nephi was. And so yes, you see seer, Peter, Egyptian. That's ancient times. And so it's for the purpose of translating the book. But remember, this is the exact same pattern as Lehi's vision, second vision. Emmanuel comes and gives a book about the destruction of a future time. And gives the date. Where's the date in Joseph Smith's second vision? It's the same pattern as Lehi's, 23rd September 2017. He uses that with the Urim and Thummim. Because in Abraham, we see at the beginning, he wants to be a high priest. And so in verse 3, or chapter 3, and I, Abraham, had the Urim and Thummim. So he became a high priest and the leader of the church, Melchizedek, a seer. He's got the Urim and Thummim now. And he apparently got it in the Ur of Chaldees, which is in Egypt. Figure number Facsimile number 1, figure 10. Abraham in Egypt. Not Ur of Babylon. What the hell are you thinking? He's in Egypt. He got the Urim and Thummim. He's Pharaoh. That's what it means. He's Melchizedek, who came to Abraham, and Abraham gave tribute to, because Egypt ruled the land of Israel, Canaan, after he saved his brother Lot. But now Abraham is Pharaoh, and so he sits on the throne of Pharaoh, as Pharaoh, with Hatshepsut, the queen Pharaoh, behind him. And so who's the boy getting married as part of his coronation to become Pharaoh? Not hard to figure. I don't know why Egyptologists can't figure it. I guess they don't know Egyptian as they claim they do. So that's why it's important to know Egyptian. And so he sees the stars. He sees signs in the heavens with the Urim and Thummim. Ta-da! Lehi has a Urim and Thummim. Alright, so giving us the date, 23rd September 2017. He is now quoting prophecies of the latter days. So it's not the birth. It's the start of the latter days. 23rd September 2017. Which, in the Book of Mormon, is the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah, king of Judah. Nope. 23rd September 2017. 2017 is the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah, king of Judah. Not 597 BCE. It's the learning of the Jews. It is not literal history. And so Malachi, hey, Emmanuel, who says his name is Nephi, says he's Malachi. Here we have Malachi. What's in Malachi? Hey, if a man robs God, will you rob me? In tithes and offerings. Bring the tithing into the storehouse for the poor, and you will have revelation of the latter days, so that you can get out of Babylon. We'll get to section 64 if we don't. 2023. When was 64 written? Already went over with you. 2 9/11s. 1813, 1826. 13 years apart. Knights Templar, Friday the 13th. See what the Scottish Rites were doing? They were naughty, naughty. They were reenacting Friday the 13th. And I don't think they were on Friday. We're at 1 hour and 30 minutes. Let's see if we can get it quickly accomplished here, or if Google Chrome is going to give me grief. But yeah, the day that shall burn as an oven is also involved here. As I saw the video camera did a hesitation move, and it's frustrating me, I see. And so he adds, for they that come shall burn them. That's important, because it's not God who's going to do it. So we need to find out when this date is. Put the white screen of death. Way to go, Google. Yeah, this is taking too long. Alright, and then we continue on in Malachi, talking about Elijah. So you know Biblical Hebrew and you know Paleo Hebrew. But this is the God Yah. His story is not literal history either. Remember? Learning of the Jews. The God Yah. That's Emmanuel. So the coming of Elijah is the coming of Emmanuel. But it's before the coming of Emmanuel. And so the hearts of the children planted with the promises made to the fathers. Posterity, the human race. It's not genealogy. Mankind originated from Egypt and then migrated out and warred against each other, saying they're the one true human. We are all of the human family, and we need to know and understand this, because they that come are going to destroy the human race with an extermination event, a day that shall burn as an oven, the abomination of desolation. And if we do not come to understand our origins as the same, the whole earth would be utterly wasted at the coming of the Christ in the latter days, 23rd September 2017. The start of the latter days. So not the destruction. He, as we will soon find out, will be calling to a certain group of people to listen. Get the hell out of the great and abominable church. Joseph Smith added that, by the way. Utterly wasted. Now it's important because it's strange. What's he doing? And so then he quotes from the 11th chapter of Isaiah that talks about two Christs. One Christ is the root, the foundation. The second Christ is the latter-day Christ. So this group would be an organization in which a founding Christ restores the learning of the Jews, new Israelite Egyptians. And would be preparing the way for the latter days learning of the Jews Christ, Emmanuel of the Egyptians, sun god at noonday. And so here we go. He quoted the 3rd chapter of Acts, 22nd, 23rd verses, precisely as they stand in our New Testament? Are you sure? He said that that prophet was Christ. It's Emmanuel, not non-Trinitarian or Trinitarian Jesus. So let's confirm that in just a second. But the day had not yet come when they who would not hear his voice. So it's an organization with a founder who's Christ, talking and preparing the way for the latter-day Christ, who begins his ministry on the 23rd of September 2017. Should be cut off, precisely as it stands in Acts of the New Testament. Oh, look, it's in the footnotes. Let's go to it. For Moses, the Christ of the Jews, shall we say the founding Christ, because a man like Moses, oh, look at that, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up. Human parents, human seed, human egg, human offspring, descendant of your brethren. Who? Which group? It's not Christianity. Like unto me, a man like Moses. Him shall ye hear in all things whatsoever he shall say unto you. And it shall come to pass that every soul which will not hear that prophet in the latter days, beginning 23rd September 2017, shall be destroyed. That's not cut off. That's a little more severe. Yeah, cut off comes from Malachi, comes from Micah, comes from other places. It's even in the Book of Mormon. But Joseph Smith says it means destroyed. Interestingly, remember he says utterly wasted at his coming. Here it's destroyed. So now you've learned Greek. You go to the Greek text of Acts, and it's actually utterly destroyed. That's strange. Joseph Smith then goes on to say if he shows anyone the plates, he will be destroyed. He adds utterly wasted, and then says he'll be destroyed if he shows anyone the plates, because people are trying to murder him to find it. That's why. So let's go to Deuteronomy. Well, Deuteronomy is the law. This is the Jewish Christ. And his name is Emmanuel, from Isaiah, the Egyptian sun god at noonday. And so I think we can, and I think we should, because you're all complaining about the Book of Mormon, about Jesus. It says the name Jesus. So, in 2023, of 3rd Nephi, it's hilarious. This was not in the original Book of Mormon. It was Parley P. Pratt who separated the verses and different chapters from the original 1830 Book of Mormon, just so that you know. It's just this coincidence. And so, the Bicentennial year, 2023, behold, I am He. This is a Jesus talking to the Nephites who survived climate crisis and a coup of the government and are now in Zion in Bountiful at the temple. And Jesus is now saying, I am he of whom Moses spake, saying, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up as human seed, human egg, human offspring, descent. Not Trinitarian, not non-Trinitarian, not nothing seed with human egg for baby that therefore is not a descendant of King David, and not super seed, exalted seed with human egg to give birth to half exalted, half human, non-Trinitarian Jesus. Which, yes, Hepsitsut is. And so is the great and abominable church's Christ, like Perseus and Hercules. They're not real. But nonetheless, man like Moses. And there's cut off. Cut off, huh? But then it's going on to quote Acts. Verily I say unto you, all the prophets from Samuel and those that follow after, as many as have spoken, have testified to me. That's strange. Why is Jesus telling them of Acts, which had yet to be written? And Joseph Smith says this is wrong. What's going on? And so, yes, raised up to start his ministry 23rd September 2017. Weird. And I think it's time to go to 64. This was a different chapter section, depending on whether you go to the Book of Commandments or the Doctrine and Covenants of 1835. But understand, neither of them revealed the day when this was given, only the month and year. The 1981 edition restored the day. Thank you, Bruce. September 11th. And so, we again go to verse 23. Behold, now is called today until the coming of the Son of Man. When? 23rd September 2017. This is Joseph. You caught on to who they are? The organization whom the Christ will be raised up in, and who the founding Christ now is? Hold on, we'll get to 2 Nephi chapter 3 in a minute. Verily, it is a day of sacrifice, and a day of tithing of my people. For he that is tithed shall not be burned at his coming. Malachi. Tithing refers to Malachi, to give to the poor and receive revelation about the signs of his coming, and know when he'll be coming, and know him. as a baptized member of this organization because you're apocalyptic. For after today cometh the burning. This is speaking after the manner of the Lord. For verily I say, tomorrow all the proud and they that do wickedly shall be as stubble, and I will burn them up. Joseph Smith changes that to, they that come shall burn them. For I am the Lord of hosts, and I will not spare any that remain in Babylon. This is code for the great and abominable church with non-Trinitarian Jesus. From pattern of the Trinitarian Jesus of the great and abominable church of Constantine. This is the group he will be born into to rescue if they will hearken to him, if they will study their scriptures, if they will learn real history of the church, if they will learn real history of the world, if they will learn biblical Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew, Greek, Egyptian. Okay. 9:11. Second Nephi, chapter 3, verse 5. For Joseph of Egypt, the Emmanuel of the book of Genesis, saw our day and obtained a promise of the Lord that out of the fruit, seed, egg, fruit of his loins, the Lord God would raise up. So it's not non-Trinitarian, it's not Trinitarian. It's learning of the Jews. A righteous branch unto the house of Israel, not the Messiah, who is also seed, egg, fruit, but a branch which was to be broken off. Isaiah 11, the roots, the foundation of Joseph's church. Joseph. We know this because it calls him by name. And so the Messiah should be made manifest unto, who's them? Mormons. In the latter days. When does the latter days start? 23rd September 2017. Verse 9. Well, let's go to 15 first. Give you his name. And his name shall be called after me, Joseph. And it shall be the name after the name of his father, Joseph. Joseph Smith, Jr., the founding Christ of Mormonism. Okay? So now we can go back up to verse 9. And Joseph Smith, Jr., shall be great like unto Moses. Joseph is the man like Moses, but he is not the man like Moses, whom I have said I would raise up unto you. Mormons, who will begin his ministry among Mormons in Salt Lake's Valley, 23rd September 2017. To deliver Mormons, the new Israelites, Section 107, verse 91. Talking about the first presidency with Joseph Smith. And again, the duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood, which was just him, but he said, when I die, 3 presidents. So the duty of the 3 presidents didn't happen, null and void. The duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood is to preside over the whole church and to be like unto Moses. Joseph is the Christ. His successors were supposed to be the Christ. The first presidency is the office of Christ. No Trinitarian or non-Trinitarian Jesus. So, Adam Diamond, that priesthood meeting? Huh? No. Nelson says he's giving all of the money that he's been hoarding to the Christ when he comes. I can assure you he hasn't. Why would I assure you that he hasn't? How would I know? You've not figured it out by now? You're supposed to be looking for the Christ who preaches to Mormonism, about Mormonisms, on the 23rd of September 2017. Calling Mormons, hello, I have seen the visions. I am revealing the signs in the heavens. I am rendering translations of Paleo, Hebrew, and Egyptian. I am prophesying according to Amos 3:7 to save your lives, so that you would hearken and get out of the great and abominable church and get the hell out of Utah before the day that shall burn as an oven. Still gotta wait for that date yet. When would that date be? And so, does Nelson demonstrate that he's a translator? Oh my God, no. And in fact, his name actually means Lucifer. Russell, red, Marion, star, red star, Mars, the husband of Venus, the symbol of Lucifer, the inverted pentagram. Mars, Lucifer. Ta-da! Lucifer leads the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Jesus being the abominable Christ. Hilarious if it weren't so scary. And so, section 103, verse 16, talking about the redemption of Zion. Therefore, Mormons, in the future, I will raise up unto Mormons a man who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel. For Mormons are the children of Israel and of the seed of Abraham. And ye, Mormons, must needs be led out of bondage of the great and abominable church by power and with a stretched out arm. And as your fathers were led at the first, even so shall the redemption of Zion be. And we go to section 45. Joseph Smith gives a parable to Mormons about Mormons. And so it's not Jesus, it's not the Jews, it's not Jerusalem, it's not the Jerusalem temple. 8 is where it starts. And Emmanuel will set his foot on Mount Olympus. And Mormons will be laughing at him. Mormons will mock him. Mormons will scorn him. Mormons will watch his YouTube videos to find fault with and accuse him of iniquity. And they shall look upon him and say, "What are these wounds in thy hands?" And Joseph adds, "feet, from having put thy foot on the Mount Olympus." For then shall they know that Mormon who was preaching to them on the 23rd of September 2017 to warn them, demonstrating the gifts of seer, revelator, translator, and prophet, having received them in a vision, like as Moses, like as Joseph Smith, was whom wounded him and sought to murder him. He is their king. And then supposedly Mormons are going to weep. I have yet to see that. And so then the parable of the 10 virgins. I saw the 5 foolish virgins go off to Fort Collins. They too will need to be rescued. Do we have anything else that we need to cover? Or did we get it all? So yeah, Joel includes prophecies and visions. Sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven, which every single president of the church is associated with. So yeah, we are finished. I can go over all of the scriptures for you, like Elijah is prophesied to do for the Jews. I didn't, did I? I slipped at the tongue, said it was learning Paleo-Hebrew would teach you that as Emmanuel is a transliteration from Egyptian, so too is the Tawut Moshe into Paleo-Hebrew as the David Moses Egyptian Pharaoh dynasty of the 18th dynasty. David, the descendant, to be Emmanuel. Solomon, king of peace. David the Fourth, David Moses the Fourth, Tawut Moshe the Fourth, was involved in Armageddon 1. At Har Megiddo, the Hittites were encroaching on Egyptian territory, and thus the tribute was going to the Hittites. So the Pharaoh went up with his army to do battle to kick them out and to restore tribute to Egypt. He would go on to fulfill the prophecy, later written, that he would possess the land from the Euphrates to the Nile River. But in this battle of Armageddon, he goes on vacation. He goes to the hamlet of Salem, there in the mountain. And we don't really know what happened according to the Egyptian records. But we do know from the archaeology that after his visit, they built a temple and called it the Temple of Solomon, from King David. Solomon is peace. The hamlet was Salem, peace. And it became Jerusalem when the temple was built. Jeru, nobody knows. I don't know why. It's real easy if you know Paleo-Hebrew. Oh, right, I deciphered it. That's why I know. It's the Z shape, which Babylonian Semitic Hebrew is the Yod. It's the Zeta in Greek. So the upper line is heaven, lower line is earth, the middle line is air. The air in between heaven and earth. So yes, creation of heaven and earth. Separate the waters from the waters, dry land rises up, and then the air. This comes from the Egyptian story of Nut and Geb having sex, being told by the Ancient of Days, Atum, to his son Shu, the heir, to separate them. And so Shu is the one who gives the breath of life to Adam, whom the heaven and earth have offspring. And Cain and Abel are those offspring. So yeah, the Bible author is getting things mixed up, causing confusion in Hebrew. But this is the origin from Egyptian. And what else do I need to bring out? Which I could. Like I said, I can go over everything for you. Samson tells you the dates of the 3 days of darkness, which is the first letter of Paleo-Hebrew, which is Alpha, A. But it's on its side, and that's the shadow cast by the solar eclipses of the 3 days of darkness that are given by Samson and are told in other places. So the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah, 2017, yeah, the solar eclipse on the 21st of August, 2017, Monson's birthday, the new year of the ancient religious calendar Egyptians, which was 360 days. Thus, New Year keeps changing on our 365-day calendar. And so for an eclipse to occur on a new year, yeah, the Egyptians knew. Thus Isaiah knew. Thus John the Revelator knew. Thus everybody knew. They knew astronomy. Constantine destroyed knowledge. Destroyed intelligence, causing the Dark Ages. That's why they're abominable. That's why Jesus is abominable. Because now it's faith without works. And we all know that's death. Alrighty? So does that help you understand? And so, yeah, you're looking for this Mormon who will be a prophet, seer, revelator, translator, and who restores the Bible to its Egyptian source. So good luck, because time is right. Oh, 9/11. We didn't get to that, did we? Yeah. Joseph Smith is told by Emmanuel, Malachi, Nephi on the 22nd of September 4 times, and then says, come back 4 years on the 22nd of September. 2 sets, 4. 9/11, 1813, 9/11, 1826, 9/11, 2001, 9/11, 1857, with the Great and Abominable Church of the Danites, Mountain Meadows Massacre. And so, the bicentennial year, 9/11, 64, written on 9/11. Getting the pattern? 9/11, 2023, the day that shall burn as an oven, that they had to keep secret because if they revealed the date, the enemy would change the date. And they'd be frustrated and angry because 9/11 is cool. Apparently. Symbolic. Day that shall burn as an oven. Burning the White House. Burning the Masonic temples. Burning with fire from the shotguns or rifles or whatever they used. John D. Lee, third great-grandfather of Senator Mike Lee, who likewise is involved in a coup of America with election fraud, just like his third great-grandfather. Following the pattern, as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is working with the secret combination of America, the Council for National Policy, to overthrow the government with religious freedom. They already have it with the First Amendment. And so this is a push to destroy the First Amendment, to be exempt from following the laws of the land, to be exempt and secede from the nation, turning Utah back into their kingdom as a religious entity. Thus overthrow the government. 9/11, 2001. Planes crashing, causing burning. The KKK. Cross burning. Cross for the last letter of Paleo-Hebrew. The first letter are the 3 days of darkness. The second, crosses. The upper one is the location of Zion for the latter days of the true Emmanuel. And then the other cross just happens to be in Travis County. Crossroads. Crossroads of Emmanuel. The name of your Christ, Mormons. Travis, Sun God. I hope you can find him in time. We're about a week away. There's something coming up on Saturday. Not sure what. We're looking for Holland for today to see and if there's going to be further confirmation. But 9/9 is the Jewish calendar day of 9/11, when 9/11 occurred in 2001. But 9/11 is the day, and they want to overthrow the government. And so I had to ban a new subscriber because he threatened the life of the vice president. That's not what I'm about. I am not about threatening the government, to overthrow the government. I'm here to save it, like Captain Moroni. If you come to my channel and you try to support me so that you can push your agenda to overthrow the government, which is what this church is doing, get the hell off my channel. You have not caught on to who the KKK, the Nazis, and the Confederates are. Inverted pentagrams on their cross? Did you not catch that? burning to prevent Zion. They are the enemy. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the enemy. They're the ones plotting to overthrow the government and overthrow the Constitution and destroy us with a burning that Hinckley comes out and tells us will be the most destructive, catastrophic event the history of the world has ever known. And Oakes, who's next in line to be the president, says it's a fact that it will happen. And thus why it was important that you should have studied. That you not just trust the great and abominable church.